Right, so what you're doing is using the rules of algebra, the same as you would to solve an equation, and what you need to do is to get all the e's on their own initially on one side. So the first thing you have to do is deal with this square root. You need to get rid of that square root in order to be able to get stuck into what's going on inside it. So in order to do that, you need to do the opposite of square rooting, which is squaring both sides. So the first job is to square, and whatever you do to one side of an equation, you have to do the same to the other. So squaring the left hand side means that the square root has gone, and then when you square the opposite side, 7 squared is 7 times 7, which is 49. So that's got rid of the square root part of the problem. Okay, now what we do, the easiest thing to do now is to get rid of this e that's at the bottom of this fraction. Okay, in algebra what we're doing there, that line there means we're dividing by e. So what we now have to do is the opposite of dividing by e, which is multiplying by e. So we times by e, and we've got to do that again to both sides. So if we multiply this side by e, it gets rid of the divide by e. So it just leaves me d take e on this side, and on the other side then we have to multiply that by e, so we get 49 times e, which we write as 49e. Okay, we want to get the e's on its own, so now we're going to deal with this e here. Okay, so it's take e on that side, so in order to get rid of it we'd have to add an e. If we add an e to that side, we'd add an e to that side as well. So on this side we're left with d, and on that side we're going to have 49e add e. Well, we can simplify that algebraically because we've got 49 e's plus another e is 50e. So if this question said make d the subject of the formula, then we'd stop there because d is equal to 50e. But it's not, it's telling us that we want to make e the subject of the formula, which means we need to get e on its own. So we've got to get rid of the 50. Now the 50 and the e are joined by a times. So in order to do the opposite, in order to undo a times by 50, we've got to divide by 50. So that means that on this side we get d divided by 50, and in algebra we write divide like that, and on this side we're left with e. So that has now made e the subject of the formula. Okay, so e equals d over 50. So from the top again, first thing we need to do is get rid of the square root in order to get stuck into what's inside the square root. The opposite of square rooting is squaring. So we square both sides, get rid of the square root. On that side 7 squared is 49. Then we deal with the fraction part. We want to get rid of the fraction. Over e means divide by e. The opposite of dividing by e is multiplying by e. Multiplying that side by e gets rid of the fraction, but we have to multiply the other side by e as well. Then we need to get rid of the take e by doing the opposite of taking away 1e, which is adding 1e. So we get d on its own now on the left hand side is equal to 49e plus 1e, which simplifies to 50e. So d equals 50e, but they don't want d equals, they want e equals, so we'll get rid of the times by 50 by dividing by 50. So e equals d over 50. Hope that helps.